Srimad-Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, Chapter 10. Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Text 8. Yo dhyātmiko yam puruṣaḥ, so sab evādhidaivikaḥ, tatrobhaya-vicchedaḥ, puruṣo ādhibhautikaḥ, yo dhyātmiko yam puruṣaḥ, so sab evādhidaivikaḥ, tatrobhaya-vicchedaḥ, puruṣo ādhibhautikaḥ, yo dhyātmiko yam puruṣaḥ, so sab evādhidaivikaḥ, tatrobhaya-vicchedaḥ, puruṣo ādhibhautikaḥ. Vaishnavis. One who, adhyātmika, is possessed of the sense organs. Ayam, this, puruṣaḥ, personality. Sa, he. Aso, that. Eva, also. Adhidaivicaḥ, controlling deity. Ya, that which. Tatra, there. Ubhaya, of both. Vicchedaḥ, separation. Puruṣaḥ, person. He, for. Ādhibhautikaḥ, the visible body, or the embodied living entity. Translation. The individual person possessing different instruments of senses is called the adhyātmic person. And the individual controlling deity of the senses is called adhidaivic. The embodiment seen on the eyeballs is called the adhibhautic person. Purport. The supreme controlling summa bonum is the personality of Godhead in his plenary portion of Paramatma, or the super-soul manifestation. In the Bhagavad Gita 10:42, it is said, Atava bahunaitena kim gyatena tuvarjana vistabhyaham idam kritsnam ekam shena stato jagat. All the controlling deities like Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva are different manifestations of the Paramatma feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who exhibits himself in such manners by entering into each and every universe generated from him. But still, apparently, there are divisions of the controller and controlled. For example, in the food controlling department, the controller of food is a person made of the same ingredients as the person who is controlled. Similarly, each and every individual in the material world is controlled by the higher demigods. For example, we have our senses, but the senses are controlled by superior controlling deities. We cannot see without light, and the supreme controller of light is the sun. The sun god is in the sun planet, and we, the individual human beings, or any other being on this earth, are all controlled by the sun god as far as our eyes are concerned. Similarly, all the senses we have are controlled by the superior demigods, who are also as much living entities as we are. But one is empowered while the other is controlled. The controlled living entity is called the adhyātmic person, and the controller is called the adhidaivic person. All these positions in the material world are due to different fruitive activities. Any individual living being can become the sun god, or even Brahma, or any other god in the upper planetary system by a higher grade of pious work. And similarly, one becomes controlled by the higher demigods by lower grades of fruitive activities. So every individual living entity is subject to the supreme control of the Paramatma, who puts everyone in different positions of the controller and the controlled. That which distinguishes the controller and controlled, in other words, the material body, is called the ādhibhautic puruṣaḥ. The body is sometimes called puruṣa, as confirmed in the Vedas in the following hymn: Sava esha puruṣona rasamaya. This body is called the anurasa, embodiment. This body depends on food. The living entity which is embodied does not eat anything, however, because the owner is spirit in essence. The material body requires replacement of matter for the wearing and tearing of the mechanical body. Therefore, the distinction between the individual living entity and controlling planetary deities is in the anurasamaya body. The sun may have a gigantic body, and the man may have a smaller body, but all these visible bodies are made of matter. Nonetheless, the sun god and the individual person, who are related as the controller and the controlled, are the same spiritual parts and parcels of the Supreme Being, and it is the Supreme Being who places different parts and parcels in different positions. And thus, the conclusion is that the Supreme Person is the shelter of all. Translation again. The individual person possessing different instruments of senses is called the adhyātmic person, and the individual controlling deity of the senses is called adhidaivic. The embodiment seen on the eyeballs is called the ādhibhautic person. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We know these three terms, adhyātmic, adhibhautic, and adhidaivic, from Ishopanishad and other shastras, the three types of miseries: miseries of the body and mind, miseries caused by other living entities, even from other planets, as Prabhupada says in Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and miseries caused by material nature. But this verse and purport is giving another meaning to adhyātmic, adhibhautic, and adhidaivic. It can seem very technical. In this verse and purport, the adhyātmic refers to the subtle sense body. In other words, we have subtle senses that are material, and we have gross senses that are material. And both have a controller, the particular demigods in charge of that particular bodily function or activity. The Bhagavatam is going to make the point that you can't pull out one of these. They're all three are interdependent. It's very unusual for us to consider that our senses have a controller. Part of the darkness of Kali Yuga that we're born into is that we consider our senses to belong to us, and it's up to us to decide what to do with them. To become accustomed to thinking that our senses have a proprietor and that we use the senses according to the directions of the proprietor, to become accustomed to this requires purification. Because what wells up inside us is that ongoing desire to be the enjoyer, which is constitutionally impossible. And we can meditate on this point endlessly. How is it that I have this desire to be the enjoyer, to lord it over matter, even though it's constitutionally impossible? Constitutionally impossible means, according to my constitutional nature, as part and parcel of Krishna, I can't be the enjoyer. I'm meant to serve the enjoyer. Of course, that's the secret of the highest level of spiritual reality, that rather than meeting Krishna yourself, you want to arrange for others to be with Krishna, and that is more pleasurable. Even the topmost devotee, Srimati Radharani, demonstrates that. She, the Shastra says, derives more pleasure in arranging for her assistants or friend gopis to be with Krishna than she does by being with Krishna herself. So she's always trying to make arrangements for her friend gopis to be with Krishna, and they're always trying to make arrangements for her to be with Krishna. So the Shastra describes that she's like a vine that's embracing the tree of Krishna, but on the vine are flowers, and those are her associates. So through her being with Krishna, the associates derive more pleasure. So why are we talking about such high subject? Because it directly relates to Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan mission. I remember in LA in the 70s, there was a big controversy. This is when the book distribution boom had just begun. And the word was spreading, someone was spreading the word, that when you sing in the morning, Nikunjayuno Ratikeli Siddhaya Yayali Bir Yuktir Apekshaniya, the spiritual master is helping by arranging for Radha and Krishna to meet in the groves of Vrindavan. So someone was spreading the word that this applies to the Sankirtan devotees. And there was a big controversy. How can you? This is fanaticism. This is getting way out there. All right, book distribution ki jai, but let's not make these concoctions. So I saw, because I was filing all Prabhupada's letters to him and from him, I saw the answer. Prabhupada said, this is correct. So, how to be with Krishna? First, we have to understand that our real sense activity is for pleasing Krishna. How long is that going to take for us to become comfortable with our constitutional position as servants? You read in Chaitanya Charitamrita that the Panchatattva drown in ecstasy by declaring that they are the servants of Lord Chaitanya. Sometimes Advaita Acharya suddenly stands up. I'm the servant of Lord Chaitanya. I'm the servant of his servants. Nityananda and I are both servants of Lord Chaitanya. Then he sits down quietly. This is bhakti bhava, the ecstasy of being a servant. Our disease is that we want to lord it over matter and think that we can derive satisfaction in that way. So this chapter is called Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. It may sound quite presumptuous, the title. It may seem quite proud and exclusivistic, and some will say we shouldn't be like that. But I remember, as not even a devotee yet, reading this chapter. The Bhagavatam second canto wasn't out then, but some individual chapters were published by the BBT Press in Brooklyn. And so I had this individual chapter. Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions? Okay, let's see what it's talking about. What we're being presented in this chapter is a hierarchy of consciousness, which is alien to the Western thought process. That the whole universe consists of nested levels of consciousness, one nested within the other. So, consciousness is primary and culminates in the supreme consciousness, the super consciousness, as Prabhupada would say sometimes, the supreme personality of Godhead. And then under him, in the hierarchy, are the devatas. Under the devatas are the human beings. Our senses are controlled by the devatas. So we start with consciousness, and materialistic thought says, no, begin with matter. We start with life, the supreme life, and the materialistic thought says, no, let's begin as if matter can do inconceivable things on its own. This is our big disagreement. We'll be discussing here the role of the Bhaktivedanta Institute and how it can go on. I was curious, because sometimes we say, what kind of stance can we take in doing outreach? What can we say about the scientific world? Should we wait for our devotee scientists to come out with something? That is a little difficult because it's not opinion, it's fact. Our devotees, our academics, they have to be mindful of their position, their status, so they can't seize they can't charge ahead as some of us may want them to. So I thought, I need some preaching ammunition. Here we're saying Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. I hand this to a university student. How is Bhagavatam the answer to all the questions? How can that be? Is this some kind of religious fervor, some kind of over-religious enthusiasm? So how could I answer that? I mean, I've studied history of science at university, but that was years ago. So I was wondering and hoping, when do we get something to present to others that is undeniable? Could it be that maybe what Prabhupada said was outdated? Life comes from life. Maybe we were too enthusiastic and fanatical back then. Maybe there's a new way, or maybe what Prabhupada was saying, the attack that he was mounting, maybe that's no longer appropriate. Maybe science has moved on since that time. So I decided, well, Hare Krishna, Jai Sri Sri Gauranitai. I decided, what am I going to do? We can't wait on our Bhaktivedanta Institute personalities. We've been begging them, please, give us some ammunition, give us some. So I said, let's ask ChatGPT. So I asked ChatGPT a simple question. What are the mysteries of science? And in 10 seconds it spat out a list of 4 or 5 items that can't be denied. I've shown this list to PhDs, and gosh, they were shocked. We don't know anything. They never saw such a cohesive package before. So they were thinking that maybe we should be more accommodating, maybe we should be nicer and not kind of prod and poke and mount any kind of challenge. Maybe that was for Prabhupada to do. And he was kind of old, and those times were back then. And, no, you want to hear this list?
Yeah.
So these are not my words. This is artificial intelligence. While different thinkers and sources may list slightly different sects, the following 3 or 4 are commonly cited as the great unsolved mysteries of science. Number 1, the origin of life, abiogenesis. The mystery is, how does life emerge from non-living chemistry? And so we go on to here. Despite advances in biochemistry, molecular biology, so on and so forth, the steps by which simple molecules form complex self-replicating systems that led to cells is still unknown. This includes the emergence of the first genetic material. So there is Prabhupada's challenge. Life comes from life, not matter. And so it's clear as day that no one is anywhere near solving this mystery based on materialistic thinking. Mystery number 2, the nature of consciousness. The mystery is, how does subjective experience arise from the brain's neural processes? In other words, how to bridge the gap between material brain function and immaterial conscious experience. Number 3, the origin and fate of the universe. The mystery is, what caused the Big Bang and what is the ultimate fate of the universe? The mystery is about what triggered the Big Bang, or what, if anything, came before the Big Bang. It's still a mystery. Similarly, dark matter and dark energy, which make up 95% of the universe, are not yet understood. 4 is a bit technical. I don't use this one except briefly I say it. Unification of physics, the theory of everything. Can quantum mechanics and general relativity be unified? Physics lacks a single framework that describes both the very large, relativity, and the very small, quantum mechanics. And it says, there are efforts being made, they're ongoing, but incomplete. It's a polite way of saying no one knows what's going on. So, these 4, because I was worried, is this just what the fanatics say, or is this mainstream? These 4 are frequently referenced in science literature and popular science, not just popular science, science literature, as foundational mysteries that remain unresolved despite centuries of inquiry. So then I prompted, I asked, what about the development of complex life forms from simpler organisms? And it responded, yes, this is another profound scientific mystery, although sometimes it's more or less it's saying swept under the rug of evolutionary biology. But when you pull it out from under the rug, then you see it's one of the fundamental mysteries. And so ChatGPT says, nonetheless, many scientists do consider it a 5th major enigma or mystery of equal weight. It can be framed as follows. Number 5, this is the last one. The emergence of biological complexity, major evolutionary transitions. The mystery is, how do simple life forms evolve into more complex organisms with differentiated structures and functions? Natural selection, Darwin's, whatever shape form it is in these days, explains adaptation, some minor differences, but struggles to fully account for jumps in complexity. Why and how did cells begin to cooperate and specialize rather than compete? It goes on a bit more. And then it talks about many evolutionary theorists, such as this one and that one, have proposed frameworks. In other words, major transitions in evolution. They want to tackle this problem, but it remains incompletely understood. So, in sum, ChatGPT says, how life begins and how simple life becomes complex are often treated as two separate yet interrelated grand mysteries. So that was pretty easy for me to get a concise statement. I use it in outreach and people just go, yeah, that's right. Well, we don't know anything. Oh, amazing. This is all I ever wanted from our scientific devotee colleagues. So I can confidently go to any university and say this, and no one can argue. That's what I wanted. And it didn't cost anything. No BI funding did I get. But this is what I've been trying to get for years. Such a clear, crystal clear, cohesive statement. And I'm getting huge impact by saying this. No one can defeat it. There's nothing anyone can say. So therefore, when we read the chapter title, Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions, we don't have to feel embarrassed and, this is our religion, yeah, right. Prabhupada ki jai. But I wouldn't want to say this at the university when I'm doing a preaching program. But here it is. The same things that Prabhupada said, just stated in a more scientific terminology. And of course, they're not dealing with what is the origin. They're saying, we don't know how chemistry becomes biology. We don't know how non-living chemicals become living entities, how they become cells. We don't know that. But Prabhupada would always take it back. Okay, you say everything begins with non-living chemicals. Where do the chemicals come from? You notice that no one touches that. So in this way, we don't have to be ashamed. We can be politely very strong. And as I said, when I present this package to university professors, to science students, they just go silent. They freeze up. What's the problem in talking with people in general is that they're blinded by technological advancement. They confuse technology with the foundational science. Where technology is like glitter. It has nothing to do with answering those 4 or 5 scientific mysteries. But people say, we've got the internet. Look at this iPhone. What is this? Oh, Rode, Australian brand, known as the best. Oh, we're making progress.
And we gave it to you. We scientists gave it to you.
Yes, we have given you all these conveniences. But people don't think that the basic questions of the universe are totally unsolved, even after centuries of inquiry. One other example Prabhupada gave that comes to my mind is he talked about an airplane overhead in the sky. You think, oh, I recognize that airplane. What a great technological development it is. But where did the airplane take off from? And where's it going to land? I don't know. But I do know overhead there's an airplane in the sky. So how deep, my knowledge is so deep. In other words, we just, at best, know intermediate things. We don't know how anything began. We don't know how anything will end, yet we're considered to be such an advanced civilization. So back to the devatas and their controlling the senses. This takes some thought. The adhyātmic refers to the subtle senses. The subtle body has subtle senses. Ādhibhautic refers to the gross body senses, the senses of the gross physical body. And adhidaivic in this verse and purport, and in coming verses also, refers to the devatas who are controlling the particular sense. They control evidently their main way of controlling is through the subtle senses, and through the subtle senses they're controlling the gross senses. So it's a great step forward to admit Hrishikena Hrishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Uchate. With your senses you serve the master of the senses. You use your senses according to the desire of the master of the senses. This takes some purification because we like to feel it's my body, my senses. What do I perceive is going to satisfy my senses? And that becomes our main issue in life. My senses, me and my senses. I'll please your senses. Can you please my senses? What will please my senses? That's the code word for happiness, pleasing the senses. Or happiness is the code word for pleasing the senses. You don't go up to someone and say, can you please my senses? But you can. It's all right to say, can you help me be happy? Oh, that's very, very nice. So in this way, just becoming aware of the cosmos as Bhagavatam presents it, that, as Prabhupada talked about in the purport, you have eyes, but what can you see without the cooperation of the devata in the sun? Because you need sunlight to see. So in this way, we see the whole picture up until the devatas, but then there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so, in the purport, the verse is quoted from Bhagavad Gita. Atava bahunaitena kindatena tavarjuna. Krishna is telling Arjuna, I've explained so many opulences, so many vibhutis to you. Separate, individual, there's this opulence, this vibhuti, that vibhuti. What's the use of all this diverse knowledge? Better you understand with a single fragment of myself. With Paramatma, I pervade everything. And then the chapter ends. Boom. All right. Any questions?
I have a question. In the verse itself, the second sentence, the embodiment seen on the eyeballs is called the ādhibhautic person.
Yes. The gross physical body.
What does this mean, seen on the eyeballs?
Your eyeball sees a gross physical body. Your eyeball doesn't see the subtle senses. I know that because I've looked ahead. I've read up to like verse 14 because I was also bewildered.
Because on the eyeballs is a little... With the eyeballs, I'm seeing... How do I see on the... Something is seen on the eyeballs. Does this mean the retina in the back? Or what is it?
It just... for looking ahead, and also looking at the commentaries, Srimad-Bhagavatam Thakur, it's another way of saying what's detected by your gross vision.
Okay.
I had to really work to get through that one too.
Right.
It threw me for a while.
It's an editorial...
I don't know if it's
unusual, no?
It's unusual.
Yeah.
It's an unusual way of...
It's easily understood.
No.
What I can see with my eyes,
Yes.
other bodies, these are the adhibhautic. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Anything else? Yes.
You mentioned the devotees control the senses of human beings. And as far as devotees are concerned, Krishna controls the senses of devotees, like in. That's what. Okay. Like in the 8th chapter in Madhya Lila, where talk between Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya is happening, and he asks about the ultimate goal of life, and Ramananda Roy starts quoting until he gets to the point that he doesn't have the answer, and then he says, "You make my tongue vibrate and describe this. I don't know this, but you make." So
that's Ramananda Roy.
Yes.
Are you in his category? The pure devotee's senses are directly controlled by Krishna. Otherwise, the control is indirect. Which reminds me, it's a stunning example for us to realize that our senses are not under our control directly. In other words, what I'm saying is there is a supreme controller of our senses, which is the number one reality. I was thinking, what's an example of that? Remember Nimai, Lord Chaitanya, was in front of his house, and some thieves came and scooped him up, thinking we'll take him far away and rob his jewels. So they're walking with Nimai, little Nimai, and suddenly they realize we're right back at his house where we started. What's going on here? Their senses were totally bewildered. Their vision was totally bewildered. They could only see what the Supreme Personality Godhead wants them to see. So this brought to my mind an incident that happened to me during the Iron Curtain days. I was in Warsaw. I was already wanted by the KGB, but still I was going. And so the devotees there, at that time there were about 20 devotees in the underground yatra. So one day the devotees came to me and said, they were so happy, we have a place where we can meet to have kirtan and talk about Krishna. Wow, because no young persons had their own flat or had their own house. So the only way you could have a gathering for having kirtan is to find a place where the parents had gone away for the weekend. And then you could have a kirtan party in the home while they're gone. So they said, oh, Devamrita Swami, we found a house. The owner of the house is gone for the weekend. She gave it to her son. Her son's an up-and-coming devotee. Oh, this is going to be great. So we went to the house. Friday, Saturday was wonderful. Talking about Krishna, having kirtan. And then Sunday morning, I was seated in a circle of about 20 devotees. And I was speaking about Bhagavatam. And I still remember, my hand was in the air, and as Shukadeva Goswami, and I looked out the corner of my eye, and I saw this big, tough-looking lady come in the door. It was his mother, and he didn't tell me that his mother was in the police. They're so eager. Let's talk about Krishna. Kirtan, kirtan. They neglected to tell me his mother was a high official in the police. So I'm talking, and I'm big, tough, looked like a stereotype Communist Party lady, stocky, bear-like features. And so she was so well trained and disciplined. She started at the circle. She walked up where Dandakaranya is, walked up between 15 centimeters, 1 foot of his face, and just memorized it. And then she went to the next one, just right in front of you. And I'm thinking, uh-oh, I don't look Polish. What's going to happen when she comes around to me? I said, I guess this is the end. Because usually at that time I wouldn't go out during the day. I'd only go out at night because I was a strange sight in the Eastern European countries, because they're used to seeing Africans, very dark, but they couldn't place me. This is Turkish, some thought Italian, Sicilian. They couldn't figure it out. So therefore I had to be very careful. So I knew that when she comes around to me, I'm finished, because I'm such an oddball sight. So she went one after the other, and then she's coming around. And then she came to the devotee right next to me. Same thing, memorized the face. And then she turned her vision to me, and I saw the light go out of her eyes. I was thinking, Hare Krishna, she doesn't see me, she's right in front of me. Her eyes became like stone. And then she went to the next person on the other side of me, and I saw the light in her eyes come back. And then the next person was her son. She grabbed her son, dragged him into the kitchen, started beating him. You're having political meetings in my home. You're ruining my career. And then I just scooped up my car keys and out the front door. So later, when I met with the devotees, after she had left, we met at another house. I said, what did she say about me? They said, she never saw you. She's right in front of my face. Then I understood. Hrishikena, Hrishikeja, Sevanam, Bhakti. Anything else? Yes. It's Naraswara Prabhu or Vaisheshika Prabhu.
Maharaj, what are some of the topics that you present at universities that lead you into this list, and how do you develop it?
I present that we have a totally bewildered civilization that is now reaping the effects of ignorance about what is the meaning of life, what is life itself, where did it come from. We don't know these things, and therefore we're trampling, destroying our own environment. And then I ask, what creature do you know destroys its own environment? Even elephants, they'll gobble up one section of the forest and then move on and won't come back until that section of the forest has been regenerated. But human beings are destroying their own habitat. So this lack of knowledge has profound ramifications. It's not, well, no one knows. Abiogenesis, the origin of life, no one knows. So what? Life goes on. Life is not going on. We have economic uncertainty, political instability, a planet that's being destroyed. So obviously, our not knowing what's in the Bhagavatam is causing massive fundamental problems.
Thank you.
That's just one of many angles. I'm sure you could think of a trillion. Brahma Maharta Prabhu.
Is there any benefit of our scientists schmoozing with other scientists?
Uh-oh. I think I hear my mother calling me. Yes, there is benefit. I'm not against that, but it has to be coupled with what ChatGPT put out in that list of mysteries. For some reason, our devotees shy away from that. I can't figure it out. So easily I got such a cohesive statement. You also agree? It was
Absolutely.
in 5 seconds. And I tested it. No one can say anything against it. So this is all I wanted.
Are you sometimes referring to science as a religion?
Am I?
Are you referring to science as a religion sometimes? Because in a way it is a religious... Nowadays atheism is...
Yes, that's a whole nother theme. Scientism.
Yeah.
That's science as a religion. That's another angle that can be explored very deeply.
Because it's faith in a way. It's faith-based.
Yes, I would expect this from our devotee scientific heroes. It would help so much. Yes?
Maharaj, you mentioned about the fallacies in the science.
The what?
The fallacies, the mysteries that the scientists have. Despite all the mysteries, they're still quite confident in presenting their case. And
not all of them. Not all of them. But you want funding, just like our scientist devotees. They want funding. So, Hanuman Prabhu can tell you better than I. I know Sadhuputta always said, if you want to see scientists squirm, just start talking about funding. And they claw each other apart because of funding issues. You know what funding means? Money.
Survival of the fittest.
So I'm very grateful to ChatGPT. I have this list which I've been waiting for years from our devotee scientists. I got it in 2 seconds. It's bulletproof, tested, bulletproof. And everyone who hears it has the answer. Either they go quiet or they just say, we don't know anything. If you don't know the answer to those mysteries, 4 or 5 mysteries, what is your knowledge? So I found it to be the easiest way to shut everyone up. I try it at universities. I try when I meet a scientifically trained person I'm talking to. I say, what about this and what about that? And it humbles them. Otherwise, there's this attitude that Bhagavatam is one of those ancient fantasy texts of the mythological class. They have that kind of superior attitude. Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Yeah, right. We respect your belief system, but it's just a belief. And I say, well, what about this list of scientific mysteries? What do you know if you don't know these things? Rarely do I meet someone who says, well, we're working it out. We're working on it. Rarely. Generally, they go quiet. And if they're very pious, they'll just say, we don't know anything. So I just wanted to share that with you all. And for me, I think this is the way to go. I'm not against scientists, devotee scientists smoozing, having friendly gatherings. That's fine, but there also has to be this, what ChatGPT spat out in 2 seconds and said, remember, this is prevalent in mainstream scientific literature as well as popular science literature. So don't let anyone tell you, oh, you've been reading the, stuff meant for the layperson. Don't let anyone tell you that. All right. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.